Hey there guys and gals, it's me nirex and welcome back to Beginner C++ Programming. Now in this video we'll be talking a little bit about references. Now these are, well, they're easier than pointers, that's a good news, and they're not really that useful just yet. Okay, when we get to the classes and all that good stuff of OOP bullshit, references are going to come in handy a lot. Now we're going to use them left and right, we're going to love them. There's some advantages, a whole lot of advantages that we're going to talk about in this video about references. So, references are basically other names. Okay, so imagine if a guy has two names. Okay, name number one is like John, and this first name is John, and the second name is like I don't know, Jones. Why not? Or Jim. John and Jim. They're the same guy. One guy has two names. One of them is John. The second one... Why did they write like this? It should be like that. So John and Jim. Alright? Int John. Int Jim. If I want a guy to have two names, I need to do something about it. So when I say I want my guy to have two names, I want my variable to have two names, okay? So that when I change one of them, the other should as well change. Now let's see how we can do that. So first off, I'm going to write two ints right here, and then I'm going to put one of them to be the name of the other, alright? Like this. So the only way that you can actually make a reference is like this. Now, there's a thing, we can't really have references to references, doesn't really make any sense, but we can have references to variables, because references work like other names. Your other name cannot have another name, but your person can have another name. This is basically another name for the same person. So John is one, and Jim is equal to John. Right? And that's basically it. This is basically what a reference does. Now, if I change John equals 2, and std out Jim, you will see that Jim is also equal to 2. Now, if I set John to 2 and then change, let me just go down here, Jim to 50, and then std out Jim, or rather John. Yeah, it gets a bit confusing. Let me just go ahead and do std and del there and here. So 2:15. Now here I changed John to 2 and printed Jim. It gave me 2. Here I changed Jim to 50 and printed out John, and it gave me 50. So if I change one of these guys, the other can as well change and will change. Now, the thing with references is, the point to be careful about is that if I do that, you can't quite have it like this. You need to initialize it, and if you hover your mouse over this guy, you can see that reference variable Jim requires an initializer, so you need to put a value to it. Okay, whenever you're making a reference, you definitely need to do that. So this is basically another name for this guy right here. Now there will be another video, the intuition into pointers, which is going to be released after pointers. Now that is going to be a total explanation of how pointers and references work. It's going to be a very long video, but it's going to explain absolutely everything. And so that's basically it about this one. So you definitely need an initializer here. But what's the use of this guy? When do we use these guys? What's the where do we use it? What the hell is this? Why do we need references? So one of the reasons is that maybe you need your functions to have two returns, okay? So as you may already know, a function can only have one return value, okay? Let's say we have a function called foo, takes an int a, another int b, or let's actually name it sum. Return a plus b. So it returns the sum of the two numbers that you give it. Okay, so if I do something like int a equals sum of a and sum of 10 and 15, like that, it's gonna add these guys together, give it 25, and put it back into a. So if I do something like std out a and print that, it's gonna give me 25, as you can see. But sometimes you might need to have two returns. So we want to see if our operation was successful. Now, if it is successful, we want to return true. But as you already know, true is 1. If I run it again, you can only see 25. If I take this away, you can see that return true actually returns 1. But if I put that back there, all you can see is 25. The reason to that is when we reach this point in our function, this guy is just absolutely deleted. We don't really give a damn about that guy. So one way to do it is with references. We can do something like bool reference success or b success, like that. And then before the return, we do b success equals true. Now, the problem with this is that when we do something like this, first off, it can't really have a default value because it's a reference. Second problem is that we need to put some sort of a bool here. Alright, so let me just go ahead and make a bool. Success. I'm going to do something like that. Std a. Do something like that. Success. To see if this was successful or not. Now let's see it. So 25 success. So this guy right here, even though it's not initialized, when I gave it to this guy, it automatically initialized it. It initialized it to true, gave it true, and put it here. Now I could set this to false, just so you guys can make sure that it works. Now, here's the thing about references. This is the first use. Okay, this is the most common use of references. Well, not the most common, but it's a very common use of references. The most common is another thing that we're going to talk about in classes, not just yet. This is the way to return two values out of a function, but a function can never have more than one return type. The second one is just not going to be called. But yeah, this is the way to do it. Now, there is one more use. Well, that's actually the same principle, but when you want to set variables outside of your functions, which is, you know, this one, the example that I'm going to give to you, this example is the most common example that everybody gives when they want to talk about references, which is a swap function. So it has two values, a and b, and it's, whoa, bro, come on. And then we don't really need a return type because it's just operating, okay, it's just doing something. So this is going to change the position of a and b. Now let's test it exactly the way it is. So I have int a equals 10, int b equals 20. Swap a and b, and then print a and b. Let's print a and b before the swap. Let's print a and b after the swap. As you can see, it doesn't change. Now let me just fix that with and L. There we go. So as you can see, it doesn't change. 1020, 1020. But, oh well, actually, because the function is empty. So let's actually do the operation. Int tmp equals a, a equals b, and b equals tmp. And that's it. So even though the function is complete, when I run it, the same thing happens. Now, the reason to that is when you create a function, whatever variable you put here, upon calling the function, these guys are created, and when you reach here, these guys just automatically die. And when calling a function that doesn't have references, it's not another name for the same thing, the value is going to be copied in here. So we're going to take a copy of A and a copy of B, replace them by the copy of A and by the A and B here, and then work on those copies. So what's going to happen is, it's just going to swap the two copies. It's not going to swap the same thing. If I do it here, and not here, you can actually see that the values do change, but only inside the function. Okay? Now, as you've already seen here, the way to push it back outside is with a reference. When I put the reference here, bSuccess was false, and it got set to false outside the function. I can do the same thing here. And when I do that, instead of the copies of the reference, copies of the variables going into the function, the variables themselves go into the function. This guy is just another name for this guy, so for whatever I give it here. And so values get replaced and swapped, as you see right here. So this was the basics of references, okay? Now, instead of just copying it, it's going to just push it back in there. Now, we're going to learn a bit more about references when we reach the classes and, yeah, string and all those good types. Yeah, I'm not going to even explain what that is just yet because it's going to just confuse you. So, that's the basics of references. There are no homeworks for this video because, honestly, it's easy. There's nothing to talk about. It's just it. If you want to learn it, if you want to practice it a bit more, just try to write these functions from scratch, especially this one, just without looking at anything. Try to swap it. The algorithm is simple. You make a temporary variable, put A to that, B to A, and temp to B. So you basically hold A somewhere and put it back to use when you need it. And so guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. If you have any questions, do write them in the comments. I'll try to get to you as fast as possible. And thanks for watching. Do subscribe if you want to. And so thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.